This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Hoffman. Today is Wednesday, December the 4th, 2024. So glad you could join us here today. Coming up a little later on in the program, we'll visit with Kenan Laden of agmarket.net to find out what happened in the markets today. But first, we sit down with FMC's Gail Statman to talk about where we can cut corners and where it should be considered a non-negotiable area to cut corners in our budgets for the 2025 crop year. Talking with Gail Statman of FMC. He is a Regional Technical Service Manager. Mr. Statman, thank you for joining us once again this year.
It's always a pleasure to be here, Dustin.
All right, so 2024 in the books, getting ready for 2025. Plans are already being made, looking at what they need to do to improve. Obviously, economics is a big thing right now, especially with grain prices being what they are and the whole scenario we all know about that. We've talked about that at length. Cutting corners is something that we were talking a lot about this year, and what corners have been cut and what corners shouldn't be cut. And crop protection is one of those that really shouldn't be cutting. Let's talk about that point and what we plan to learn here this year and what we should look at for 25.
Yeah, we're looking to save money in 2025, but we got to also think about what is our return on investment. And so as we think about weed control, as we think about disease control, don't think about it in terms of just what the check you're writing and the cost of those products. It's what return are you getting from those, and what could those potentially cost you if you cut those in 2025? The example I always use with a lot of growers is if they always tell me these herbicides are too expensive, these fungicides are too expensive. Well, I always say, okay, if you cut herbicides out of your operation and you had no weed control, what would that cost you in yield? A lot of times they'll tell me it's 50%. Okay, let's take simple math, 200 bushel corn, reduce that yield by 100 bushel an acre times $4 an acre. That's $400 in revenue you could potentially costing yourself by taking out $40 or $50 worth of herbicide. So you see a tremendous amount of return from those products. And so I just say in 2025, think about what's giving you a return on investment and continue to employ the plans that we've talked about for the last couple of years, because we're going to need revenue off of those acres and maximize that revenue, and weed control and disease control are extremely important parts of that, and parts we probably can't live without as we produce a crop year in, year out.
All right, so I've got two different follow-ups on that here, but we'll start with the obvious one. Obviously, this has got to be shining a light on how important it is to get upgraded with precision technology, look at where you need what you need and where you can maybe cut back on a few acres or where the diseases are. I mean, how we've been talking about this for years, getting more precise with that. I mean, really this drives it home, doesn't it?
It drives it home, making sure our applications are accurate. We're getting things put on timely and then put on accurately, making sure our spray equipment is set up properly, it's calibrated properly, so we're getting the right rate out there so that we're getting the maximum weed control that we're getting out of that dollar we're investing in our herbicides and getting the best performance out of that. Understanding the difference in application and how that can affect the performance of products. So when we think about fungicide applications, getting good coverage, getting good droplet deposition, how adjuvants play into that and how they help products perform, and all those small things that you can invest into and get the maximum performance out of that can really have a big return. And understanding what provides a return and what's maybe not is more of a luxury item is something you really need to be thinking about this time of the year as we go through these winter months, and be talking to your retailers about what's providing that return in that crop input segment.
All right, so my next question I have then is, we've talked many years, good and bad, and we talked about what it takes to grow a successful crop as we're doing right now. If you're looking at trying to cut back on your budget a little bit, to you and your standpoint, what you're looking at, what are some things that should be really non-negotiable on that list of things to cut?
Well, non-negotiable in my mind is again, weed control. We need those strong residual herbicides like our Authority Supreme, Authority Edge, Authority First Down, because that's our first line of defense, and it really protects that crop from day one and keeps those weeds at bay, because we know if we let those weeds get away from us, they're going to cost us yield, and we're going to spend a lot more money trying to rescue them. overlaying or layering that residual treatment of Anthem Max over the top. So weed control is first and foremost. And I'll say, based on the disease pressure that we've seen the last couple of years with tar spot, and then this last year with southern rust coming in on top of that, the yield responses that we're seeing from 20 to 50 bushel an acre from disease control is another one that we're really seeing tremendous response on. And so, that fungicide piece late in the season, I know that's an area where a lot of times growers just say, I'm done spending money. I don't want to put a fungicide on this crop, but really think about what the return on and what that can bring you from a yield standpoint late in the season. So those are a couple of areas that I really strongly encourage growers. Don't just automatically cut back on that, because you can have tremendous issues going down the road. Think about backing up to weed control. If you sacrificed 10 or 20% less weed control, how much weed seed is that going to put back in the soil, and how many more years am I going to be fighting all those weeds that I did that? So those are a couple of areas where I strongly consider growers don't just automatically cut back the dollars you're spending in those areas, because that can have tremendous implications down the road and throughout 2025.
Yeah, and we understand, obviously, when you look at those dollar signs at the beginning of the year, when you're thinking those plans, it chafes a little bit right now. But obviously, looking down that road beyond there and seeing what that ROI could be, honestly, when you think about it, this is something we've all been preaching from different aspects. And I know you obviously look at the crop protection side of it. When you talk about precision, crop protection, marketing plans, all of that right now has become so integrated that farmers have a lot of pieces they've got to put in place. And obviously, crop protection is that thing they cannot be cutting back on.
We've still got to maximize our yield and maximize our revenue on that acre if we've any chance of turning a profit in 2025. So we've got to produce that crop, and then we've got to figure out how to market it. And so it's going to take a little more fine tuning and a little more studying probably in 2025 to ensure that we get a profit on that acre. It's probably going to be a little bit more challenging, but I think there's still a tremendous opportunity. Agriculture and crop production is still a great livelihood and a great business to be in. I enjoy it every day, and helping growers have success out there and employ our products to have that success is something I look forward to on a day-to-day basis.
All right, so if folks want to learn about FMC, the products you have available, and the advice you have to help them be profitable in this time, where do they go?
Go to any of your local FMC Star retailers, or go to ag.fmc.com, our website, and you can get more information, and they can generally put you in touch with somebody, and we can talk more about it.
All right, Gail, thank you so much for that insight, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you, Dustin.
That again was Gail Statman of FMC. We're going to come back and take a look at those closing markets, but first we're going to hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. We're back on Ag Matters PM here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Time to run down the closing markets, and we're talking right now with Kenan Laden of agmarket.net. Kenan, what did we see come out of that grain trade today?
Grains were pressured today. Chicago wheat made a new low, but then was able to come back off of its lows throughout the day. Soybeans continue to be pressured on fundamentals of the large South American soybean crop, and corn was down slightly today.
So any news exactly as to what was really putting that pressure on? Because we saw soybeans bounce back yesterday, and then today it's like they took a dive again.
Yeah, some of the free on the board stuff out of Brazil, a lot of farmer selling has been, talked about there. Farmers selling ahead of a big crop, which is putting pressure on the market down there. So that could be one thing that's influencing the market. And as all your listeners probably know, the fundamentals right now with that crop coming out of Brazil, very large crop, estimated to maybe be one of the largest crops coming out of South America, will weigh heavily on the market.
Now, I know here we're getting ready to see the river close at our terminals here in the northern part of Iowa. Any ideas on what that could mean for farmers here, going forward, because of the fact we're losing the Mississippi, at least in this area?
Yeah, so draft levels will be down, estimated to be down throughout part of the year. and that will just slow that export base and maybe make export sales slower than some slower demand, which would lead to some lower prices.
All right, moving over to the livestock side of things. I know hogs are looking for some support. Did that continue today, and how did the cattle markets fare?
Yeah, so down across the board within that livestock sector, cattle, started off the day higher and then weakened throughout the day. Some of that could be rumors of packers, minimizing hours past January 1st this year, maybe some bird flu rumors in California, and hogs weren't able to find support today, closing the day lower up at these high technical levels.
So where is the lack of support? Where's the concern in that hog market? Just give us an idea why it's not finding it.
Well, one of the things with that is, hog exports are, a big part of that pork industry. And with the unknown of the Trump presidency or the new presidency coming in and how those tariffs will be implemented, the hog market has just kind of ignored that and moved higher. So it could be that some of those fears are kind of putting a cap on this market, but before the last couple of days, it had just been ignoring that, and hopefully it keeps ignoring that and we move higher, but we are at some really high technical levels too.
All right. Well, Kenan, lots of things for us to think about. If folks want to talk about market strategies, maybe make some plans for marketing some of their 25 crop already, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you at agmarket.net?
Yeah, check us out on the web at agmarket.net and look for a broker in your area.
All right. Well, Kenan, thanks so much for the information, and we will talk to you again real soon.
Yep. Thank you.
That again was Kenan Laden of agmarket.net. Let's take a look at those closing numbers on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network screen. March corn down 2 1/4 at 4.30 even. January beans down 8 cents at 9.83 3/4. Soy meal up $1.50 at 291.90 per ton. Soy oil down 72 cents at 41.42. Chicago wheat up 3/4 cent at 5.48 1/4. Kansas wheat up 3/4 cent at 5.42 1/2. Minneapolis spring wheat down 1/2 cent at 5.89 1/2. Oats down 2 cents at 3.78 3/4. On the Merc live cattle for December down a dime at 188.37. January feeders down 2.35 at 256.95. Lean hogs down 75 cents at 82.50. Pork cutouts down 72 cents at 91.77. And Class 3 milk 19 cents higher at 18.97. And that's been a check of our closing markets, and that brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, X, and on our YouTube channels. Make sure you are checking out by subscribing and hitting that bell icon so you can be notified each time we put out a new video product. Also, don't forget about the free market podcast, openings, middays, and closings, coming right to your mobile device free of charge from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. Get them where you get your favorite podcasts. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Andy Peterson, Mark Magnuson, and Riley Smith, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.